Neomarxism. Andthenigeria. Nperspective. How to. Conquerworld. Poverty. Practicalroadmapand. Introductionontontontontontontontontontontonage. Civilization. Carmesito Kunla Microfinancesaries. Table of Contents. Introduction. Chapter 1. The Art of Development. Chapter 2. The Being of Man and Nation Building. Chapter 3. Neomarxism. Altering the Fundamental Facton. Human History. Chapter 4. The Nature and Overview of Macroeconomic Environment. Chapter 5. Why the Adoption of Price Stability. Chapter 6. The Age of Microfinance. Chapter 7. Resolving the Puzzles of Microfinance. Chapter 8. Charting a New Horizon for Sustainable Social Development. ABOUTTHEAUTHOR. IBIKUNLE Lanian is the founder and principal consultant at Microfinance Africa New Grassroot Investment Development Finance Company Wichisto. Metamorphose into world first microfinance investment bank with concentration on African largely untapped and highly underexploited microfinancial market analysis. Pioneer of hedge bond market technology and most especially the new para-macroeconomic theory of dual financial system. Hahasathor read 2 books mainly. Neomarxism. How to Conquer World Poverty, a Global Version, and also World Development Ideology in the Age of Microfinance, which is more of continental version with some global perspectives. Through A and BG Nomier Capital, a sister company and Metalsex Group, it targets close at 200 countries of the world or countries where poverty velas at least more than 10%, which main to ADOPT neo-Marxist free market economy and dual redistributionist financial system asa. Broad-based panacea to eradicate a mass poverty and eradicate least. Hay was formerly a meteor writer and a freelance with Bias for journalism. Has essays and books, excerpts and investment projects looking for investors were posted and advertised online. Visit www.Kunli Microfinance, Blogspot, Comfort. Contact for more information. Copyright Carmesito Kunli Microfinance. All rights reserved worldwide 2020. Introduction. The aim of this book is to take a look at the microfinance industry generally worldwide and to some extent evaluate its imperatives, atargs. That the only solution to world economic crisis is found in microfinance, but unfortunately all over the world the industry is highly underdeveloped, not given special attention, and the bone of contention is practitioners. The author contend hardly understood what microfinance was all about. This informs the argument and the focus of this book, charting a new world order to be driven by microfinance. The book also global while thinking local, urging politicians, practitioners, policy makers, economists, and philosophers to change their views on world development ideology and the moribund macroeconomic models so as to avoid the costly effect of not doing so in perilous orthodoxies. It is believed as the greatest propaganda for the poor, eventual relief, and disregarded as last gospel of man for the proletariat for a safer world in which opportunity is created for all. Itist Hefferstedition nth. Microfinance made easy. MIMADECARMEZITO KUNLEMICROFINANCE series. It cannot soap. Regarded especially to the economists as the most controversial ideology in development economics of all time based on some of the propositions, but the most effective that humanity could experience when put to practice in the long run. Successive editions speak volume on the new changing orderes. Noted here in the World Ideological Map as Wineform and Remember People. About the industry worldwide. The following edition Seroin Derivuto keep abreast of the new information and development in this new era, the book through inspirations. From academic literature, scholarly research references, media articles in conjunction with the philosophy of the writer. Nevertheless, I gladly acknowledge the support of my family and business associates and promoters for the realization of almost elusive dreams and beginning the publication of the first edition of this most profound ideology of all time. It may be crazy though some, but certainly the development template speaks volume, which is anticipating criticism from every quarters of the avant-garde and bibliovex. It is going to unify humanity together for the first time in mortal antecedents. Irrespective of diverse culture, tradition, races, nationalities, and tribes. Worldwide. Already Nigeria, Afghanistan, and a few countries like Bangladesh and India among others where the industry is ambiguously adopted, though not well developed, under crisis or close to adoption. Of this proposed initial model, it is potentially worthy of emulation on a good going concern embedded with appropriate strategic practice and a robust development guide for the world that could radically transform the thinking of the anti-globalization protesters. Frankly speaking, they have a world to win, and especially the developing countries that lack appropriate development model and world bodies concerned using the instrument as case study for the world ASWE endeavor to create a safer and happier world. T. Olive. July 60, 2020. IBIKUNLE Linnean. Chapter 1. The Art of Development. All over the world, the art of microfinance is the best known human development strategy. Without development, no society can survive. Certainly, the art of development in any society is determined by development planning, which can be preceded by development ideology and strategy mapping. In the economy of man, development is a binding factor for all humanity and the sole sustainable factor of social life, from the antiquity into modern times. It is a fundamental fact in human history. However, development brands and models differ across territories, but certainly the original context of mass development is incontrovertible and the same in a legal framework for all societies and humanity to build. The disparity common to development antecedents among diverse societies is the issue of development density, which measures the quality and quantity of development in an economy and strategic impact in population market. Using cultural indices. It is to be noted that this density, which varies markedly or is exceptionally very high according to prevailing standard in advanced countries, and the inherent models that nurture this density is grossly innate quite by practice and modeling to developing countries market. Such cultural hazards bred by intellectual imperialism tends to mystify the importance of this density. Highly unsuitable to the repressed territories. This domestication cultivated by duress has presently promoted grossender development and a degradation of the environment of development of the territories. Organically, pastorally depressed development standard I am bibbing unworkable. Models ask it handkin of ineffective development agenda. Consequently, the dividend is mass poverty. Out of serious factors such as darkage mentality gripping the territories, especially Africa, could not be so detached, being two faces of a single coin. Toscape cultural hazard. The so called counter-development trap cycles and Western intellectual terrorism. Sensible countries of the world, predominantly the emerging market, have opened a new era, adopting and imbibing hook, line, and sinker this Development concept that gained renaissance in the 20th century. To build capacity, which is the author of development they have embraced. The concept is the panacea to ever-increasing mass poverty in their territories. Today there are over 11,000 MFs in the world, and prior to Smeltdown had successfully touched the lives of over 500 million people. CGAP, 2008. And to understand microfinance effectively with new models, ISTO chart a new development are in our world today despite giant stride made so far, still in the preschool of the practice and industry dark age. In a potential 80% of 6.5 billion mass poverty market worldwide, this indeed is the richest market worldwide. Idastoba noted that development comes by using technology and cultivating more than aid quake capacity with multi-pronged strategy for effective practice and sustainability. Fishes eluded the industry since the renaissance of modern microfinance. Effective voice of microfinance promotes sustainable capacity and could nurture capital development with the right technology. The Challenge Show. Taurus ignorance using the media and good use of institutional art creating such awareness across the world is included in this revised international version. Elusive development is a major barrier in the country which the technology can resolve too well in view of alien-tested empiricism and practice of microfinance since 1960 has been below expectation vis corporate obligation and strategic impact over poverty reduction, let alone eradication, and grossly underperformed in the face of ballooning mass poverty. Several reports find out that this is due to poor technology. Understanding microfinance Cicerantido Teto Bill development density in this part of the world and beyond, and perhaps returnagoria to the path of development golden age of the 1940s, 50s, 60s, and 70s and beyond. Indeed, the journey has just begun. Chapter 2. THEBEINGOF Man ANDNATION Building. The being of man is extremely complex in human society and indeterminate. Man by nature is evil, parochial, unconciliatory, conciliatory, and can be good by nature only if he so wills. Evidence of history abounds. Top row of this indisputable fact. In philosophy, self-preservation is the very first law of human nature. This might have encouraged the parochialism in man, which is in turn the very first law of self-preservation. This propensity is prevalent in capitalist world of Adam Smith, which preaches preservation of self-interest and competition acting against each other in the ecosphere of social interest to regulate free market. 90 years after Wealth of Nations, Karl Marx ways to make the most rebellious and portentous declaration of how capitalism slowly proceeded but reluctantly and ineluctably into doomsday. But had is the most indisputable fact in mortal antecedents which can only averted with the adoption of revised Marxism, the existentialist philosophers such as Kierkegaard, Sartre, Heidegger, Kant by modern teaching believed that man is alone in a meaningless world that hides completely free to choose his action, and did this actions determine his nature. Manas Marx claimed is not natural a being but a human natural being, whose being is for himself. Carver, 1983, Human constructive and deconstructive destructive in human parochialism is at work. Here Abrahams, 2009. Had described Edmund as biological, aggressive, jealous, and territorially protective, sociological and psychological, autonomuself, reflective and creative, using constructive parochialism, altruism, in the society. Man's dual nature and manichaeistic bias was captured by this admiration, and also sees man as capable of limitless thinking, conceptual problem solving, and autonomous and innovative activity, and can harmonize social and community relations. On the other hand, man is capable of substituting oppressive power for creative power while safeguarding his heteronomous nature, or might set up barriers rather than build bridges to Other communities Baltimore, 1991 Inda, 2001. The constraint imposed by life challenges tends to influence this nature in man. Long before Marxian and political philosophers have ascribed similar attributes to man's nature, from Plato and Aristotle down to Hegel Marx, and Engel and Lenin by the nature of their philosophies and writing certain basic common underlying principles unite them, such as the culture, structure and origin of the state and most importantly the nature of man. Plato believes that ordinary men are both selfish and rational and all men are potential tyrants. Commenting in this light, Aristotle affirmed that human beings are inherently wicked. In the Leviathan, Hobbes concluded that men love liberty and the ability to dominate their fellow men, although Locke holds that man's nature is inherently good. In The Citizen, Locke also observed that man should be restrained from fear of coercive power, or else every man will distrust each other. Contrary to this dissenting opinions, Marx and Engel believe that the prevailing pattern and nature of production and distribution of wealth determines the nature of man. They were equipped to point to the anatomy of class struggle, that economic mode of production in every area determinist political and intellectual antecedents of the terra. This absolute truth cannot be disputed, that the nature of man is imperial, aggressive, and love to dominate his fellow men, not out of moral expediency but just out of sheer animalism. This can only be resolved by the equalitarian principles of Neomarxism that preaches market or distribution is man, that since man is born equal, they should also be allowed to equally explore their vast opportunities. It is truth that on average humanity is capable of this dualistic expression and potentially heavy nature is an indeterminate human superior and capable of unleashing pain and pleasure, good or horror and evil on the society should his right bedenedim. We make bold to affirm that inequalities of wealth in every society of the world is unusu all very high, and about 80% of world population do not have economic rights. The human institution is highly impugned, insensitive government abound everywhere, and infinite potential unusually abhorred. Managing human resource therefore constitutes the most difficult task of all life cultural endeavors. This is naturally expedient thing to observe, because in the Marxian theory of surplus value, man is the only producer of surplus value, which relates to man's unlimited capability want the ground that all other factors of production parade material finiteness. That Heise, a limitless thinker, justified this axiom. According to Marx, human labor contributed this value that is appropriated into wealth by capitalists. Human capital is the most productive capital. For instance, in the Jakarta Plan, while the country's physical capital accounts for 16% of its wealth formation and natural wealth about 20%. Human capital gulps 64%, close to twice the above. Inda, 2001. We're economicritus heavily abhorred, or where circumstances benefited some to the repugnance of the wishes of the majority, and those powerful likely to be affected by change may thwart effort to protect the status quo. Eileen Wolf described this suffering class as victims who are threatened by change. Wolf, victims of insensitive chandier the majority. Poor in the society, victims of mass deprivation may find no alternative than to revisit the offense back to the society ordo insensitive government, which has contributed to the ordeal as consequences for a larger part of human history. It has been the major cause of social instability and intermittent crisis and global wars. This is common in the territory that failed to invest in its people. It can be contended that for over 50 years since the rebirth of microfinance, the underlying thesis is that the world economy does not have a egalitarian development model. Besides beggar than the neighbor principles, as a mode of measuring global development in terms of physical structures, the movement has no presence in the developing nations. It has largely ignored This most crucial element of development. This is vital cause it is the basis of development and also a framework to measure the successful outcome of mass development. Unfortunately, the world today has thousands of these MFIs, companies with no adequate skills and strategy to reduce mass poverty. That question here is no theory inadequacy population-wise is huge. But the appropriate capacity to have poverty in alignment with foregone MDGs 2015 and beyond to eradicate global poverty. The end result is phenomenal industrialization, shrinking formal market and ever ballooning mass poverty across the world. Of course, poor capacity ordinarily leads to poor nation building and gross underdevelopment, truncating potential density of development. Theorist of developing nations is confronted with poor capacity building, which can only be resolved in the longer term. The intimidating presence of this prevalence with horrible statistics are scary enough as they cut across every sector and nations in the global economy. Thapanacious observed in building capacity for sustainable development is to harness world informal sectors vastly untapped wealth not through public noise by international policy makers and global industry regulators, which has persisted for decades, defying every attempted resolve. MEETINGWORLDDEVELOPMENT planning challenges. Learning to climb the ladders of development and value chain is a fundamental resource and a demanding choice of man communities and nations worldwide. We remember Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's easy to get stuck in a psychological trap when consideration is given to basic physiological needs such as houses, foods, capital, clothes, cars, and various facilities that guaranteed comfortable living, as the needs mature or are retained, they cease to be motivators of performance as men's preference and precedence move up the value chain, craving for further satisfaction and sustainability in the everyday complicated challenges. Nations and economies share the same burden like man facing emotional challenges that ISP particularly more important in a sensible society that value national precedence beyond mere frivolous paracular alternative competing needs. Since development is a binding factor of humanity, an attempt to define this subject as long as humanity can remember but by 1960 became specifically important and more prominent in various academic literature and scholarly references. These are witnessed through Universal Declaration of Global Development Decade. According to UN, development means people and welfare remains its essence, goals and objectives when measured in real terms. Quality of Life Index. Contextually, Todaro 1997, 70 and Igun 2004 in general terms break them down, emphasize the craft of development into the following. Filled square, increasing availability of basic means of life such as food, shelter, health care and protection with sustainable enhanced distribution. Filled square, increasing standard of living such as higher education, better jobs together with increase in human self-esteem and cultural net worth. Filled square, increase in citizenry freedom, economically independent nation. Freedom from alien people from ignorance, misery and servitude. Whitehead 1982 also emphasizes the need for 6 basic means of life. Namely, healthcare, Medicare, housing, land, clothing, foods, and water. HDI Human Development Index is a combination of these indicators necessary to ensure adequate standard of living. The UNDP HDI approach at measuring development stresses the need for human welfare and denotes human welfare as the ultimate essence of any development planning bocinal process based social and economic imperatives. To measure prosperity, it also stresses economize efficiency overall units in the society. In the 1990 report, UNPI specifically emphasizes the need for growth and development process should involve social and economic equity where conducive environment is created both collectively or socially and individually. But there are no philosophy supporting this greatest provision in the history of man. This eventually find a voice in Neomarxism. The provision enables der Privilegien the Societeto harness their full potential for the purpose of letting a fulfilled, productive and creative life. UNDP 1990-5. Similarly, the rise of sustainable human development concept was born out of desire to sustain credible antecedents of HDI or any development attained in the field. Brundtland Commission 1987 quoted an UND report in Human Development 200-01 defines status meeting the needs of the present generation without jeopardizing the needs of the future generation. Single quote. This rhymes with Fiona Harvey definition of sustainable development in 2007. According to UNDP, certain key elements form the concept of sustainable human development. This includes filled square development of the people, development for the people, and development by the people. The first notion entails human capabilities and health enhancement so that they can motivate people to participate fully in life, while the least emphasizes the need to provide opportunity to every citizen to participate fully in the ND development process. The two notion entertains belief in creating and providing equal privilege for all people to have a fair share of benefits that flow from economic growth. This can be regarded as equalitarian or universal development that Neomarxism preaches. Filled square. The Und Puman Development Report 1993 say, this can but not be possible, especially development by the people without a spread of political, social and economic power to all. With such type of dispersal, the social, political and economical framework and functioning of the society can easily be influenced by the people, giving them a sense of belonging in their nation. According to their reported secorialment of human development, filled square human development is indeed a sacrosanct core element of the concept and nature of development. The report graphically maintained that filled square. This view of human development implies that people by right should have access to a variety of avenues for exercising power. Its logic suggests that participation is both a means and an end, and that the decentralization of government is desirable for its sake. The mechanism through which people may exert influences can vary widely. As individuals, they can cast a vote or engage in entrepreneurial activities. As groups, they can form community organizations of different types or belong to trade unions or ethnic associations. High levels of participation give a natural expression to human capabilities. UNDP 1998 4. Rephrased and requoted by I. Gunn 2004. Filled square equals noted gross inequities, and highly disadvantaged people are increasingly marginalized from this power market, which are usually the poor, from women, children, pious segment of the population, and ethnic minorities. The concept and nature of development. Despite lofty provision for development and the maturity of development concept in some countries of the world and the giant strides made in the economy of development, mass development, and in fact the nature of development soundness persistently under siege even in the advanced countries, irrespective of landslide being recorded in science and technologies. The world today is still yet to have a universal development ideology or a macrophilosophy that unify the entire fabric of humankind. Sectarian, racial and quintessential national interest. Besides, usually this economy is in crisis from the dawn of human civilization. The law of development, which is in most cases is the revised law of culture, says that A nation must first have a developmental philosophy, and secondly, should also observe the great charters of liberty (GCL) as the Constitution of mass development, and then thirdly maintain and sustain its leverage, density and tradition through robust bibliocracy when cultivated. Itis. Basic framework for development in the Western world. In the succeeding chapters we explore critical appraisal using America as the case study, to some extent what it takes to avoid future meltdowns, and the challenges of poverty facing the world economy at large and how it can be conquered. We chart a new era for the developing territory in its ability to regain development density. A new chapter is open-eden. World history with the rise of Neomarxist to achieve the goal and provisions of und oriented to create egalitaria and world os. Noted in above analysis, no society developed and sustained development. Without this law and no civilization had been sustainable fully indicated. How depraved they we perennially against Thysathos. Chapter 3. Neomarxism, altering the fundamental facton. Humanhistory. In the rise and fall of great history the nature of human society is extremely complex from the ancient until now, the diversity of this nature and its severity so fiery down the millennia often confound the pragmatic consensus and rational bearing and quintessence fortitude of human arts at every twist and turn of social project and social venture respectively, ondas in the same vein particularly owing to widespread unmanageability and innovative shortfall snowballs diversity into adversity and adversity in turn into mass inequality, spreading its tentacles with unrepentant cobwebs maneuvering the depravity in the socio-economic system signifies the extent of the dilating dampeners triangulating the intricate cause of societal justice and ostracize and truncate the priceless outrange of meta-development leverage that a nation or a society require in the path towards its development golden age, and the nirvana that marks one of the most detested men in Western history. Never failed to vaguely regard it as communism being the final destiny of mankind. However, the development of every existence poach in the rise and fall of great history and great powers rests squarely on the prevailing Zudergeist of that era. No society can rise above it artillery of human thinking at a given period. In a sensitive jurisdiction the predisposition of this psycho-artillery ballistics maneuvering and driving the socio-economic system tends to subjugate forces of nature, liberate human spirit, democratize consumption of arts, optimize freedom of thoughts, and substitutes adversity for prosperity. Even though the universalization of this progress and process of social enterprise leaves much to be desired, the presentation of this diversity, unresolved by poor gray matter which defied and defiled allogic sciences, and theories under developing in the process requisite sustainable capacity, building for the growth of development, commerce, and maturity of this. Commerce is the greatest challenge in mortal history. This built impetus into civilization unsustainability, as human epochs brazenly and callously maneuvered in the rise and fall climate cycle by depraved capitalist cannibals in this temperate zone of norm-morse inequality energetically soared into stratosphere militarizing against universal security and welfare of man, which is expected to gravitate further into maturity in the long run. The projected doom days entrenched in the dangers of overpopulation. There is no doubt that human societies we restratified into classes from the time immemorial. The anatomy of social life in this regard communicates status inequality and the gross inequalities of wealth, a prominent feature in the capitalist societies, the last hope of the common man and the proletariat. Formerly was Marxism, unfortunately with the unpremeditated changing topography of times it quickly faded into dungeon of insignificance and did die a natural death even with no remorse from its advocates and event huff. is still relevant than Western neoliberalism. Certain factors accounted for this. Unceremonious exit mainly, the polymyopism of Fitz modelers engraved in. The misrepresentation of the posterity in addition to pragmatic infeasibility. Modeling blunder and strategic disability approach deployed at result. Orientation and pellucidly due to manus economy ever-changing sphere of reasoning and above all the animalist propensity of man to constantly abuse. The Great Charters of Liberty, GCL. The rise of Neomarxism. In the immediate post-1960s, 70s humanity had started a new Donanda. New chapter in human history was opened covertly and overtly unknown to many with the rise of neo-Marxist era through the instrumentality of microfinance. Today IT remains the most reliable voice against the deafness of neoliberal global empire heavily outfoxing outstripped and outwitted even Neo-Confucianism in its into distant obscurity, its potential outrageant development envisaged pedigree at this virgin stage alone exceeded the most pseudo-authentic econometric model ever contrived in mortal history. Pathetically, it has the least ovation owing to lack of understanding and ineffective technology is the late strave in the neo-Marxist age which contrary to its critics potentially resolves the entire gamut of mass poverty and universal human misery. Microfinances temest potentul in this regard and decentral calibration. Opening up the road map towards the development golden agisman and societies move away from the challenges of mass development arbitraging and holocausting that humanity is made to grapple with peculiar bias. Unleashing gross development inadequacy in the long run, as economy of the poor the practice of microfinance is the capitalization of informal sector untapped macroeconomy, the scientific framework for mass development practice and every launching pad in the long run towards economic classless society that depressed humanity and depraved capitalist cannibals never expected nor desire, it preaches economy climatic change and the harbinger of neo-Marxist free market in the path to the nirvanand complete economic freedom that Marx failed to see altering the fiery fundamental fact in human history. It is the most comprehensive economic model ever contrived be man living or dead equipped with men's unusual defense against mass poverty. It can also resolve potentially the challenges of climate change easily because as the poor growth their economy they better take care of their environment. This falls under environmental microfinance. The definitive appeal and expository analysis deployed here is unusual and a far cry from conventional microfinance models in practice worldwide. Number 1 can indemnify the losses caused the poor in terms of social welfare, equitable development and living standard than this most highly untapped and the most maligned institution of development history, truly speaking itis. The insurance of social equity and through poor technology could also abet social inequity. The indebtedness of erstwhile feudalage had not gone unnoticed, callously accumulated until now, leaving no room for address. Struck with lame duck fairness and lamented fairness under duress. North. Injustice of merchant class accumulated since the beginning of the industrial era abated either. Compounded with insensitive development models drove direct sequences precipitating social inequity and increasing incidence of global poverty as population increases uncontrollably. Fortunately, microfinance as a broad-based socialist model resolved this challenge in the great fight against poverty. Inequality swept away the old feudalages that lived behind times, with the same wrath of nature the merchants and the industrialists that assumed saddle. Upon the demise of the older would soon become irrelevant and said to be driven away by the standard inequality of the percentage into a larger extent by overpopulation, perhaps in the unforeseeable future. Likewise, assumption of power by the proletariat and the working class if given powers. Again sitting b. Lenin-Sovereign Declaration and instances of power death. Soviets would only impoverish further the polity of power duetto possible. Repetition of the abuse of power market system dragging back revolution towards the golden age envisaged time framework. The Soviet credible history is a long process to learn from. This remains the fundamental historical fact. Forget about revolt entrenchment of dictatorship and T. Hughes. A forces class's attempt to control the ownership means of production can conciliatorily evolve with the development separatists. This is translated as economic power being persistently sought for and fought for in the rise and fall of great history, and a major reason behind unequal cultural division into classes. In other words, Marxist class struggle is determined by power struggle. Once economic power is secured, all other powers by status and category are easily obtainable. This explains why human arts persistently strivisto contra its lever. Neomarxism and power triangle, the fundamental ideologifnewh. One submits that the fundamental fact behind aggression in recorded history I soften the search for power, mainly economic power. This power motivates every humanity, opening up the mysterious chains of power triangle that persistently nurtures and intoxicates the rise and fall of human history in human civilizations from the ancient until now. The nature of power, the composition of power, the regimentation of power, the sovereignty of power, the imperialism of power, and true power. Absolutely is power triangle oriented. The orientation and predisposition of human culture is predetermined by the trickery of power triangle domains. It is the sole life force behind the rise and fall of great culture. In a layman point of view, where culture is fallen, the power triangle is risen and vice versa, and where great powers are, great history is fallen, power triangle is risen. For its efficiency rests largely on the level of modesty with which it operates. The utilitarian culture, in the much same way in which class struggle is the central thesis of Marxism, power triangle is also the ultimate thesis in the neo-Marxist age. While Marxism covers in most cases only or reproduces the social psychology of the transition period from the pre-industrial into industrial society, neo-Marxism is a bit broader. No wonder it found little response in the 19th century Britain and to a great deal in Russia. A non-intellectual reaction against the depression the United States had also experienced. Marxism also by Latin America as they increasingly grew integrated into global economy and a very society, according to a philosopher, has its Marxist period when the ideology is sensitive to its problem. This gold no longer true with the growing inequality in our world today and rampant economic crisis even in the advanced territories as they enter post-industrial age. Since class struggle is the salt of Marx-E. Schmidt's most revolutionary part. To abate potential revolutionary costly imbroglio associated with the swoon and scion of inequality, neo-Marxism was propounded with relevance that extended from the ancient, the preliterate, the pre-industrial, and the industrial and the post-industrial, the and the re-industrial and the neo-industrial societies yet to come, opening up the great transition and dissecting a simpler framework what is needed for a peaceful coexistence and ensuring universal prosperity, and its most incendiary thesis is the power triangle. Then what is power triangle? The global evidence and the empire of power triangle. To be precise, power triangleized institution of power and power market, and the pure economics behind power market system, the abettor of competitive struggle, the mechanism that underpins pristine class struggle, and a commonwealth for measuring the strategic impact on cultural development and universal coexistence. The composition of social enterprise and social aggregate is a function of power market struggle. The swings in this community of development is a reflection of similar swings in The triangle optimized potentially in the observation of GCL, their evolution. Of P, T components naturally influences Marxist class struggle, the rise of structural imbalances and disharmony ordinarily composes cultural recession and depression in cultural dark ages, which is the fall of great power and great history respectively. The imbalances on inequality in the power market. Is the architect of social inequality that launches class struggle. Asman determines to liberate his human spirit from the pawn of an existing moribund nature of a social system that catapults social life, which abets social debt. This mysterious change often begins by the rise of economic power. Power triangle is composed of political power, economic power, and social power. When they react, a struggle is born in the mobilization of this triple system formalizes a socio-economic system, from the pre-literate history down to prehistoric peoples to the modern times we have observed as the sole life force behind human existence and a universal libido in the commerce of culture and development, and the sole motivator of class struggle. Sharing his views in 1926, Adolf Hitler, in a subtitle of his revolutionary ideas, once noted, "Only force rules." Heck included that of the fundamental motif through all the centuries has been the principle that force and power are determining factors. All development is struggle. Only force rules. Force is the first law. A struggle has already taken place between original man and this prime val world. Only through struggle have states and the world become great. Economics of competitive struggle in the power community. It can be contended that economic struggle motivates and promotes political struggle using the enterprise of information democracy to mobilize active brain power into technological power. Greed for power unarguably is the orientation and the sole objective of political struggle and economic power. At redemption catalyses political power into reckoning. Established political power also tends to nurture economic power complex strictly endorsed to consolidate statehood, attempt at nation building and capacity building. Their strategic interests always comply and sometimes, or in most cases, sas not in. The developing history usually impugns the dignity and integrity of social interest, and where there is insubordination a resistance occurs, swelling social instability. Resistance is bound to occur due to different objectives, especially the motive for economic gain using competition by the economic power, while aggression and reputation constitute the primary and the secondary objectives of the latter. This instability later creeps in their doorsteps or sending or degenerating into economic and later political instability. This is regarded as community power tussled CPT, and a competitive struggle that measures the orientation of the social mass and universal net worth of that society. A healthy society or a sick baby can't be differentiated. Cultural evolution of this struggle thought should be meaningful collectively advances into aggregate of social struggle. There is no affordable alternative to social life. Humanity must learn how to manage judicious use as a primordial strength of utilitarian culture swinging from age to age. It catapults the rise and fall of human history and global civilization, respectively, since our action poses element of struggle which the entire Darwinist school preaches resistance between this struggle works at polar opposite to promote Manichaeism, as noted by Zoroaster, or dualism by its unregulated nature to a Betscrime nurtures crisis and possibly wars. This struggle is the reaper and binder of universal fate of mankind. Theorizes of political power can never be possible and at best potentially distracts social, political, and economical stability, nor can it resolve every human crisis, let alone demonstrate a face-saving palliative, unless humanity learns show to wisely manages economic power, which is the antidote crisis and world wars ordinarily would have no end. For instance, the collective security Street. Those by a broad international consensus was introduced during the One World War, and the formation of the League of Nations exploited the warped potentials in the Treaty of Versailles could not prevent the coming of another brutal aggression and a more damaging war followed by the late 30s. The consequence was the unpalatable use of aggressive instincts exploiting the savage beast in man, to whom consideration towards his fellow men looks alien, if we recall the antecedential savagery and the depraved animalist in men, such as the racial aggressions, the invasion of the Hunsby people known as Mongols, during the days of Genghis Khan and Tamer Lane. What about the capture of Jerusalem by horrible crusaders or any of the ancient wars earlier noted, or wars and global crisis since the failure of International Peace Conference at Hague in 1907 down to the fall of 1945, and the flagging off of the Cold War by Truman Doctrine until the exit of 90s, the fall of Berlin Wall and the disintegration of Soviet Union, only a sensible mind would bow humbly to the truth of this view. Theortop political power by nature of righteousness is inhuman and at best is a rebuff of social harmony. It destabilizes and disintegrates social power status at will with a feminine build, which usually suffers the damages of the tussle and widens gulf between them in the power triangle community. The inherent resistance in this gulf authors global crisis and wars awash at an human antecedents. There is no better method to animate harmony than to exploit the beauty of this art in the schematic rendition of economic power. The human and universal welfare coil and spillover effect of the structural imbalances and resistance noted in the power community. This climate renounces social stability, peace, and universal welfare in mass poverty waste transfer read from generation to generation. Tory constitute social harmony and spread universal prosperity, not capitalist prosperity adhering to social equality crusade. The religion of power triangle, Neomarxism, Isa. Street. Probe an antidote. Itus mori appropriateto 21st century generation witches. Confronted by the stigma of ever-escalating social inequality and the burden of overpopulation which challenges the welfare of humanity. Undercommon power social manera consistently kept and guided under Ave. For the purpose of security and the protection of their common property. This common power is formed by universal goodwill of this community. Shares the Trinity image and operates also in that same community that governs the nature of existence. The liberty of the tussle to prol at will unsettles common power that ordinarily indirectly composes the bitter struggle. Distant at that Trinity image apula unresponsive governance. And contrary to Thomas Hobbes, the life of man even right there inside the society is solitary pornasti brutish and short. No account of farts, no letters, no account of time, no society and no knowledge of the face of the earth, and worst of all continual fear and danger of violent death. In this condition of where if ever against nothing can be unjust, Thomas Hobbes sees government asa Leviathan 1651. The cultural rights of man and power. Triangle equation. The formation of human society is wrought by the art of nature midwived by cultural rights of man, the miscegenation and the utilitarian insemination of power triangle cultivated in the ecosystem of change produce these rights. Its growth and germination can be exploited not by aggressioner heavily tilting under duress power triangle harmony, but by careful evolution of economic power. The use and practice of these rights fuel the activity of struggle and the exploration of power market system. Unfortunately long. The line greed for power occurs upplanted power tussle through the acrimony of power struggle. It shall benedidogan that the objective of political power is aggression for glory, a bussing its rights that nature bestowed to be peacefully exploited, and the purpose of economic power is rigid, which Isherbevel with orientation to consolidate on the gains of competitive self-interest. The former hardly promotes it except if it were its lackey to promotates. Glory and economic power if it does it is in the sense to promotiant. Multiply the image and appeal of aggression. Whereas the estate of economic power motivates and influences political power nurtures and abets its dynasty with a view to help further enhance its image. Unfortunately, the corruption of the image stems from the inordinate use of political power, overheating the community to heartlessly trade aggression instead of free, mutual and social gain, and where the need is impossible to attain duetto. Lackey bias and ineffectiveness of intoxicated economic power. Political power resorts to sustainable aggression. Such greed for expansion and repression of fundamental human right is not in any way economic by the nature of its use and practice. In fact, for the political power fat all Toby. Effective economic power hasto floats on top in the power market and control its excesses by the practice and franchise of censure. This can be possible once errand boy status mentality she obviously opposed. This happens. According to Wiles of Nature, the Fisher ice brought in the hapless region. An average humanity has three major rights to coexist, and the exploitation of these rights unknown to many is regarded as fundamental human right. From social to economic and political grows into formation of cultural rights. It is a universal all right thing in a cultural trinity when properly regulated. Catalysis universal welfare. The preservation of this trinity was torn apart and struck under duress as human society grew from the primitive state, junglage into polished or civilized state, to observe the Greek charters of liberty and build equitable power market that would architect equitable and sustainable social life. Effective use of cultural trinity provides the sole building block. All over the world the nature of power triangle is adherent and aid fetus to the exploration of these rights sustaining the inequation. Web in the power market. The practice of cultural trinity and the growth. OFHUMANCIVILISATION. Cultural trinity was the first heritage that nature bequeathed to man with the propagation of universal life, the rise of human Confucian ethics, and the exploitation of the natural freedom, itis truth at the collective nature of these rights, albeit power tussled authors human slavery jungle age and human civilization depending on the nature of social climate in which it operates. With the sadoms granted by the franchise of nature purposely to explore a large expanse of equitable fields provided by natural freedom, man begins to use the activity of struggle to build power market once it is decided to break loose from the perfect freedom that nature granted, and he opted for cultural freedom instead, which has carried nature and Mother Nature respectively this far. The strategic management tools of his geocentric choice includeth trinity with which to till the soil of human bias and to attain and harness cultural freedom desired, the economics of these rights maneuvered in the use and practice of struggle potentially mandated and oriented to observe. GC lease a natural requirement for building the institution of power batalto. Influence civilization and capital development. It is also true that promotion of the enterprise of struggle began by implementing an enforcement of cultural law of struggle through the adoption and practice of the Trinity, the mobilization of his enterprises. Equalto activity is the totality revolution and evolution of culture, the field of nature. Upon this the Trinity is transplanted and planted respectively to explorates infinite potential minefields. The development absorption rate of culture is a function of the growth and quality of entrepreneurial expertise deployed by practitioners, life artists, to the use and economic exploitation of these rights, the aggregate of which modern civilization usually regarded as civilization. Ellipsis 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 dot. Politics drives the center circle of human instincts and dispenses the commerce of human reason and its naturous economic, at saturation leveler. Wherever it fails, man resorts to aggression or pacifism for the jungle man, who has no upon to defend himself. A combination of pacifist, imperial, and odd mixture of these items oriented this climate from the jungle to the civilized age, maneuvering the dispensation of this right to existence. Itis. Necessary to go down the lane into recorded antiquity to see how the Trinity evolved into economics of struggle and PT optimized and equitably compliant as the central institution to comply with the great charters of liberty while observing and visualizing us a practicing artist in the power market. From the story of a caveman according to narratives by a publisher who spent all day drenched in the rain endlessly trying to catch a fish to feed his hungry family. No matter how Hetridaventhahan early ka tonor came closer only to slip away, and beaten blue by hunger the light rain turned into heavy rain and was forced to exit labor and hide away in a nearby cave. The story sounds scintillating, entering the cave having been accustomed to the darkness, Henneted a series of painting mounted on a wall. The first painting reflected a deer and another depicted a godlike figure in. The third was amazing, which saved his life. It was a simple drawing of a man holding the stick, and at the other end fastic a fish was dangled. By this little drawing a cave jungle man family was saved from hunger and survived the days starving. With an Anhauer implemented the idea, Andre turned Tohi's family carrying 5 fishes. That is unbelievable. Indeed, it is power off idea. This indicates the metaphysical and material nature of idea which can be felt, seen and touched. In a scientific point of view, it grows into an ideology. For every studious mind, usually idea promotes tradition, and tradition in turn promotes technology, and eventually this promotes an economy perpetually tradable in the evolution and revolution of utilitarian culture. From the story of the caveman we noted that the use of these rights and the consumption and development is struggle. The practice of Trinity promotes Sandisa. Reflection of the economics of struggle in a moving earth. Asha struggled to survive economic power using technology brewed from active brain power saved the day. Any liability and inability to procure these rights automatically leads to aggression. The modern man is often the pre-sheriff. This folly. It is clear that uncontrollable natural circumstance usually ignitemento abuse the use of political power. The